They say technology makes our lives easier for work, to learn, to travel, to communicate. But there are things that machines cannot yet do. Things as important as engaging, putting themselves in your shoes, having intuition, or making intelligent decisions. In an increasingly technological world, we need professionals who provide intelligent solutions based on their know-how. Because there are things that technology cannot yet do for you. The human tech.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, thank you very much for joining us today on the 27th of May, 5:30 Madrid time. And I'm delighted to share 1 hour of our time with you guys, talking today about buying a property in Spain. A very important topic where I'm sure you'll have questions like how to choose a estate agent, why hiring an independent lawyer in Spain, what are the due diligence, contract of properties, resales, all the legalities and tax responsibilities for foreign buyers, and how to proceed in case of breach of contract, which is quite important to protect yourself while buying a property in Spain. Obviously, through all this experience, we'll talk about the most common and costly mistakes to avoid, and then later on we'll talk and have questions and answer from the floor. So please start sending us your question, telling us where you're coming from, where are you interested to buy a property in Spain, because we are going to divide it in two regions in Spain, in the whole Mediterranean. The north part, we're going to talk Pellicer, Heredia, and the south in Andalusia, Michael Davies. I'm going to introduce you first to start with. I'll start from the south part of Spain. Hello, Michael. Good afternoon.
Hi, Ignacio. Hello, Pedro. Hello, everyone.
And then we have from the Costa Blanca side, Pedro Heredia. Hello, Pedro.
Hello, Ignacio. Hello, Michael. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you very much for taking the time this afternoon to share it with the audience and talk a little bit more about buying a property in Spain, which unfortunately we carry on listening to people falling into different pitfalls and problems. And I consider it's quite important to learn a little bit about expert like Pedro, Michael, Pedro. Now, Michael has been practicing law over already 30 years, which is quite impressive, Michael. And and then well, we're going to start, Michael. If you could please start from the whole experience in probably we keep it 7 minutes each of you to discuss a little bit, and then we could jump into questions and answer, because we could be talking here forever. And we only have 1 hour of time. Okay, and Michael, please just share your website and your email as Pedro, please, just in case somebody doesn't have the time to share with you their comments, or you cannot get back to him, and it could be a bit more interactive. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Davies. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Ignacio. Yeah, so for those that don't know me, my name is Michael Davies. I'm a Spanish lawyer. I've been in practice for just 30 years. We do this year. We operate in Andalusia. For those that need someone to handle a purchase for them in other areas of Spain, for example, Valencia, Ignacio and Pedro are an ideal firm. We only operate in Andalusia. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is, people every now and again hear about the bad situations, but in general, buying a property in Spain is 100% safe as long as you follow the correct procedures and use an independent lawyer like Ignacio, Pedro, or myself. We've handled over 2,000 conveyances in the last 30 years, and we haven't had clients that have actually got themselves into any kind of problem. We did see some problems, but not from our clients. Ignacio and me had a bit of experience with clients during when the property crashed in 2008. clients would come to us because their company had gone bankrupt and they didn't have bank guarantees on their stage payments. That's something that would never have happened with a serious firm, because we always ask for bank guarantees on stage payments. So basically, as far as the process of buying a property, let's say you're from the UK or from the US, you need to basically come over to Spain. I would recommend, if you can, to dedicate some time to sourcing a good independent lawyer even before you start the process, because we can help point you in the right direction. I think Ignacio and Pedro probably agree with that, because normally, very often what happens is that the client sees a property, they suddenly fall in love, then everything's moving very, very quickly. And sometimes they have to end up, hiring a lawyer that wouldn't have been their first choice if they'd had dedicated some time to it. So I'd say dedicate some time to finding a correct lawyer. Luckily, you are spoilt for choice nowadays. 20 years ago, there was not that much competition, and you could, there would be a reason if you'd have sort of fallen in the hands of somebody that wasn't an expert on buying property. But there's no excuses anymore. There are plenty of bilingual lawyers all up the coast, especially in Andalusia and Valencia region, which are the two regions we're talking about. So our firms, or there are many other good law firms as well. So choose somebody that's independent. Find also a bank that you're going to feel comfortable working with. There's no need to open a bank. Just sort of source which bank you're going to use, or if it's a currency company. All these things, set them all up. You'll need the lawyer for handling the purchase, also for handling things like the NIE numbers, opening up the bank account, and some immigration situations as well, especially now since Brexit. So line it all up. Then what you do is you'll find a property that you like. You'll enter into a negotiation. A lot of people sort of ask us, I'm going to things that aren't purely legal. A lot of people they'll ask us, do we put an offer in? Well, it seems a silly question, but it really isn't, because they think, well, in the UK, we'd put in an offer. What sort of offer? Well, in Spain, it works very, very similar to Spain. In other words, nothing will surprise in Spain. Nothing that you do in the UK would surprise you here. In other words, you don't go and make an offer of 50% less than the asking price. That would be an insult. You put in an offer of 10% less or 15%. That's sort of within reason of what would happen in the UK here as well. So basically, once you've made an agreement, things start moving quite quickly. You'll be asked to put down a reservation, normally a small reservation of €3,000 to €5,000 to secure the purchase. And then you basically immediately you have to hand everything over to your lawyer, who will start doing the due diligence before you hand over the 10%, which is what holds the whole transaction together. So at that point, your lawyer, hopefully beforehand, because you already have organized this, but at this point, you definitely need to make sure you've got a budget in writing from the lawyer. A lot of people say, what's cheap, what's expensive? Difficult to say. The sort of 1% guideline for a conveyance is fairly sort of normal all up the coast for bilingual lawyers that handle conveyancing. Lots of lawyers, for example, amongst ourselves, we do have minimum fees. So we charge, if you buy a property below €300,000, we have minimum fees that we establish. We also above certain prices that are also negotiable at 1%. So Ignacio or Pedro will probably discuss how they do it up there, but that's how I do it. We do 1% plus VAT. We have the minimum fee of €3,000 plus VAT, more for properties under construction. That's our case, but that's sort of more or less the guideline. So can you do it cheaper? Yes. Can you do it more expensive? Yes, but that's sort of an average, and it's up to you to decide what you go for. Also, make sure that the lawyer doesn't just do the budget for the conveyance, but also for all the associated matters, to basically for him to tell you whether they're included or whether he's going to charge you an extra, how much they're going to be. Because you're going to need to open up a bank account, you need to get your NIE numbers, you're going to need to have a power of attorney, and you need to make Spanish wills. So just find out in advance. There's nothing. Also, make sure that their firm or somebody in their firm can organize the services for you. That's the electricity, the water, the rates, the rubbish, and the community of owners. Make sure you're going to set them all right going. What you don't want to do is get a cheap budget and then suddenly he starts throwing in all these extras, and then at the end you realize that he's actually more expensive than the lawyer that you would have liked to have chosen from the beginning, but you just felt he was a bit more expensive. So just get it all in writing. There's nothing wrong. In Spain, a lawyer can basically charge whatever he wants, but you have to get it in writing. That's a thing, and it's just a question of whether you agree with it or not. So The other taxes and fees to expect in Andalusia, all taxes and fees, including the lawyer's fee along that line of 1% plus VAT, all the taxes and fees tends to come around the 10% mark. The big one is the transfer tax, but you've also got a notary fee, a registrar fee, the solicitor's fee, and all these other smaller things. We always say that on a property of €200,000, it's going to be more or less bang on 10%. If the property is cheaper, the percentage can go up a bit, and if the property is over €200,000, you'll find the percentage goes down a touch. Why? Because even though the transfer tax is fixed at 7%, the notary fee, the registrar's fee, the solicitor's fee, some of us have minimum fees, maximum fees, and things like that. So basically, you'd move towards a 10% deposit contract. By this time, the lawyer will have done all the due diligence, made sure the property belongs to the seller, that's free of charges, all the normal things. So basically, that's 10% deposit. Then we move towards the completion. The lawyer between the deposit contract and the completion will make sure you have your NIE numbers. He'll open up a bank account for you. He'll do all the normal things. He'll instruct you on how the money movements actually take place and how the money changes hands at the notary, which is very important because that's the way it all needs to be in a controlled situation. And then you'll move towards the actual signing of the title deed at the notary. Normally, the notary will do this for you by power of attorney. Exceptionally, you may want to join in the fun and come over for the completion. But normally, it would be, for example, in our case, I'd complete for you. I'd receive the keys from the seller, and I'd have them then available in my office for you to pick up. So basically, at the time of the completion, the solicitor's going to draw down all the money to pay all the taxes and fees on the purchase, and about a month and a half later, he will finalise. But the day that we complete at the notary, that's when you get the keys. The keys become available for you. The property is yours. It's 100% controlled from that moment on by your solicitor. He'll have received a search certificate instance before he completes at the notary to make sure that everything is still in good order, and he will immediately get the deed sent into the property register after he completes. About a month and a half later, 2 months later, he'll be handing you all your paperwork and the exact breakdown and all the invoices and things. And if he knows what he's doing, he'll sort of give you a little overview of what's expected from you in Spain from then on. So basically from then on, what I'd say is you've got to get your title, you get a copy of your title deed at least, copies of all the receipts in case your lawyer dies or something, and then nobody can find the receipts for the purpose of at least get a full set of copies, because that's what you basically need. Make sure that you're organized with your Spanish wills. If the solicitor that's done the conveyance for you does not offer the service of Spanish wills, get somebody like us to write out some wills for you. It's very important. And then basically, if you're going to be made a non-resident in Spain, you've already got your NIE number that solicitor will have obtained. The lawyer will set you up electricity, water, rates, rubbish, and community owners by direct debit. And then once a year, you have to file a thing called non-resident imputed income tax, which basically, if you bought a flat of €200,000, it's an extra 300 or 400 or 500 euro a year, and somebody's going to charge you about €200 to present the returns for you each year as a non-resident. If you become a resident, then we need to look into more things. There's an immigration thing if you're from Brexit, and then we have to work out your tax situation. Regarding if you become a resident, you'd need tax experts, especially if you've got rental properties, etc. in the UK, and we don't deal with this. Ignacio and Pedro are experts in the field of taxation for expats living in Spain. We only handle the non-resident part, but they do deal with all these things. And I always say, even to clients, that I've known Ignacio Pedro for 20 years now, so I've known them for a long time. We don't really recommend anyone, but in their case, we do. And even our clients that buy through us here in Andalusia, when it comes to complicated tax situations, we do always recommend them. They have a service that they can deal with you over Zoom and things like that. So that's sort of it in a nutshell.
Okay, that's very good, Michael.
I know you told me I had 7 minutes or 5 minutes. I think I've more or less done those 7 minutes. So.
Yeah, Michael, you're gonna get a lot of questions, I guess. You can run through them. I'm gonna pass over to Pedro, talking about buying a property in Spain, especially from the Costa Blanca area, and then we'll just jump into the whole thing with the audience. Okay, just make sure, Michael, you both share with them your email, just in case they want to go direct, because there is some people here willing to buy a property in Andalusia. Okay, all right, Pedro, over to you.
Okay, Ignacio, thank you, Michael. I'm just to add what has been said to Michael, and I would like to speak about a little bit about the choosing a professional agent, because it is extremely important to choose professionals and as a state agent, and as well as a lawyer. A state agent, obviously, when you come to Spain, the way the estate agent works is in a way that the seller is the one who gives the property to the estate agents in general, in terms of, okay, the agent will look for a purchaser in order to buy a property. Who pays the fees of estate agents? In, I would say, 95% of the circumstances is the seller. So the seller is the one who is the client of a estate agent. You as a purchaser, you're going to buy a property through an estate agent. You will not be paying a fee to the estate agent, will be the seller in general. Then we will speak about the personal real estate shoppers that are appearing more and more in Spain. So with this, it means that, okay, the seller pays the estate agent's fees, the buyer do not. The buyer, you agree a price with the agent or with the seller, with the agent, and then you just pay your cost, which is the taxes has been set, 10% in the Comunidad Valenciana, Valencia region, plus the notary fees, registry fees, lawyer fees, well, could be around 12%. Perfect. And the seller is the one who pays the estate agent, which means that it's like a conflict in some ways. It is not, but it is in some ways that you are represented also, or you are being defended also as well by the buyer, by the estate agent, but the estate agent, really his client or her client is the seller. So this is why it's important to connect this with an independent lawyer at the same time, in order to be prepared, I mean, check everything and the due diligence in terms of everything that you require to happen. And it is not just a matter of how amount of fees is being paid by the seller to the agent, or if they want to make a fast sale because it's a big demand on a property or big demand on something. So it is important that the estate agent is fully professional, duly understand what are your requirements, duly understand and fix which is your budget and which is your requirements in terms of, okay, I want to buy this kind of villa because I want to build a swimming pool. Maybe a swimming pool cannot be built there. I want to cut all these trees. Maybe you cannot do that. Maybe I want to make an extension of that property, or I want to get a license for rent this property in a touristic area. And well, maybe this cannot be done that way. I mean, it's something that a professional, obviously an estate agent, a professional one, will help you with this, even though it's paid by the seller. And this is why it's extremely important to choose a proper and reputable estate agent that's going to work. It's going to defend your interests, even if the seller is going to be the one who's going to pay the fees. Also, at the same time, you could also instruct to an estate agent, said, okay, well, I want you to look for me this kind of property, this is the budget, and I will pay you some fee, and you make an agreement with them. Perfect. Also could be done that way. There are some estate agents now are working that way as a personal shopper. And this is why we normally say and insist on independent lawyer, because many estate agents at the same time, even though they work for the seller and they don't work for you as a purchaser, they also recommend you some like friend lawyer in terms of, okay, they will be able to assist you, and we've seen, obviously it's not the case in general, but we've seen many situations that there's a conflict of a situation, a scenario. There is some, I would say, forbidden situations where some probably lawyers or law firms, they pay some commissions to the agent in order to be referral. Well, the situation happens. In order to avoid that, you should be focused on instructing in case that you want to be represented with a lawyer, with an independent lawyer. You could be, and we are recommended by some estate agents, but without any link or any obligation with the estate agent. Michael, Ignacio, and myself, whenever we have to make a report on a purchaser and say, well, I don't think you should be buying this property because this has this, and it's wrong, or maybe it should be sustainable, or maybe it should be negotiated in these terms, well, perfect. That is our work. This is our liability, our responsibility in terms of represent you. This is why you pay us, and this is why it's important for just to instruct an independent lawyer in terms of, okay, it doesn't matter what happens, your lawyer will defend you and will not obviously, we are happy that you are happy whenever the conveyancing, whenever the property is bought and you are happy with the keys. But it's not a matter of result. We are not get paid because of results, because of at the end you buy the property. We are paid because you buy safely the property that you have chosen. Okay, well, having said that, Ignacio, buying a property in Spain in general, it has like three kind of, in Costa Blanca, it has like three kind of steps. Once you fall in love with a property, and this is important, and once you strictly fulfill the requirements that you need, the budget, and you have seen the area, you have seen the neighborhood, obviously you know the place, well, perfect. You normally, as Michael have said, I always recommend just to make an offer, make an offer about, well, maybe it's offer 200,000 euros, well, offer maybe a discount or well, whatever is the budget that you understand. Maybe the agent also will recommend you to do this or that. Well, perfect. And whenever the agreement is done by the agent and seller and the buyer, normally the agents recommend you to rapidly pay a deposit. Normally it's a small deposit. Sometimes it's 1,000 euros, sometimes it's 3,000 euros, 5,000 euros. It doesn't really matter in some ways, these difference. But I prefer as lower better, but it doesn't really matter. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 is okay. And the parties postpone this agreement on a private contract in 2, 3, 4 weeks time, 5 weeks time. Depends if it's a villa that requires more due diligence, or maybe it's an apartment that requires lower due diligence. And in that private agreement, so it's a deposit paid to the agent, then 3, 4, 5 weeks is signed an agreement, on a private agreement between the seller and the buyer, or maybe the agent and the buyer, because the agent has power of attorney from the seller. And in that contract, it says, okay, to pay 10%, this is in general, could be everything agreed. 10% or up to 10% minus the payment of the deposit, and the rest of 90% will be paid in a notary office on completion. So deposit, then private contract, and after the signature normally takes a month, a couple of months, 3 months, depending on the parties and the circumstances of the parties, is the 90% rest is paid in the notary. Could be by transference, could be by bank guarantee. We normally do it through bank guarantee, but also by transfers could be done that way. No problem. On the completion, and it's given the keys to you, and from that day that you sign and you pay 100% of the price to the seller, you become owner of that property. Then you need to pay the notary, the registry fees, maybe the rest of the lawyer's fees, and the taxes and the property registry. That's after completion, after the date that you have signed and you became owner. What happens if, we could speak about that a lot, but that is more or less the process of buying a property. Then the property is inscribed in your name. It takes around 2-3 months, as you didn't say, Michael. But this is what normally the process starts from the beginning to start. Many clients that come to our office, they start renting properties, seeing the area, seeing the city, seeing the municipality, and they, after 6 months, 1 year, 1 year and a half, they want to buy a property. They sell the property and they buy property later. Important issue that this is what we like to advise to clients. It's about, as Michael said, and Ignacio, it's about taxes, because Ignacio, it's important to have like a 360 point of view a scenario when someone is buying, is moving to Spain. It's an immigration issue, visa, residence, investment, but also maybe they have some issues in the country, selling the property where they were living, maybe withdrawing some investments that they have to do in order to buy the property in Spain. Those issues are important in order for us to ask, because obviously it may take some tax implications that may leave you in a bad position or maybe in a good position in order to avoid capital gains tax in Spain. Because whenever you become resident in Spain, you have to declare worldwide income in Spain, as well capital gains, according to the double taxation treaties. So important is to choose a reputable professional as an estate agent, important to choose an independent lawyer in order to help you and defend your interests with the estate agent, with the seller, and with the situation that may appear, or with the other lawyer as well. And important just to obviously as he says, it's 100% security by the property in Spain, but if you do it by the book.
Okay, thank you very much, Pedro. Thank you for the wide explanation you gave us. And I'm sure you'll have some questions to run through. Let me just add a few things here, which I think are important. Michael touched base on saying that you might think is expensive or cheap. I always think that when you're dealing with your assets, it's like doing tax planning or looking after yourself, your family, or trust is vital when you are in another country, and it is important. I try to share with you guys here an article that Michael wrote about choosing a solicitor some years ago, because there were a lot of people trying to call themselves Michael almost solicitors on the conveyancing side. So unfortunately, sometimes they try to say, well, you just choose the lawyer. It's very important to choose a lawyer that solely defends your interest. That's number one. Then we go back to the price side, and then you say, well, what is cheap, what is expensive? Obviously, be careful when prices are too cheap, because I don't trust somebody's looking after you if they're not getting paid well enough for their own time. And sometimes Michael was touching in the article about choosing the solicitor, what they call themselves almost a solicitor, and they're very cheap, or the agent is paying the solicitor as well. Well, this is important questions you need to make. In general, my general experience is that it's like everything. Price determines the amount of hour, the quality of work that you might end up facing and defending the client. The reason why I say this is because we've been dealing with a lot of court cases. Obviously, in life, you end up dealing with a lot of scenarios, and then the good lawyers know where are the pitfalls. Good lawyer will always identify what is the pitfall, and definitely most of the court cases we dealt with when something went wrong was they were not properly advised at the very beginning. And I'm sure Michael and Pedro would agree. A lot of the problems started with no being very well defended at the very beginning. For example, Pedro touched base on the bank guarantees. I know Michael does not recommend neither buying a property in Spain without the duly bank guarantees that really is meant to protect the interest of the consumer. So this is quite important, because you recall, Michael, on the credit crunch, a lot of people in the old days, everybody was trying to sell. And I'm sure now in Andalusia is booming as well, like in Costa Blanca, everybody's trying to sell. But don't forget, you fall in love with the property of your dreams. That's fine. If it's meant to be for you, it's meant to be for you. I always say, don't rush it. Don't push it too hard, because then you might fall. Try to choose the right solicitor to represent you and to protect solely your interest. Obviously, you touched Pedro Bays as well about estate agents. Estate agents are very important, because reputable estate agents will look after you as well, will not only try to sell, which is the problem. So, and when you talk about prices, it's like an insurance. You want a good insurance that when there is a problem, there is somebody there for you. And then when I get these people saying, well, these people does it cheaper than you guys, I say, fine, just go with them, but just to make sure somebody is really protecting you, because probably you cannot make a living, or you cannot make the time that is required for your for your project for that amount of money. So going back to all these questions, and concerns. So one of the things I agree, good professionals, Pedro, good independent lawyers. I always try to say, clients, if it's meant to be yours, it will be yours. So there is hundreds and hundreds and thousands of property in the market, good prices. Just to do step by step is important. And somebody on the forum was asking here about, and I think I'm going to send it over to Pedro. There are buying in Valencia with AEDAS. AEDAS is a good, reputable company, but everything needs to be dealt properly. And the question is, do I need a lawyer to be represented? Do I really need an estate agent in these cases? Okay, and it's good questions. We dealt with a lot of cases that apparently everything goes well, but later on you end up having the issues. Plus, I will tell you something extra on this. I mean, a good lawyer will always tell you from A to Z, or should tell you from A to Z, even helping you from a tax point of view, trying to inform you and guide you through the inheritance tax planning, which Michael didn't touch base yet on it, but he's an expert and he could tell you more about that. So there are a lot of things that are important to plan while you're buying or assisting you through the mortgage, etc., etc. Pedro, I don't know if you want to touch base on that question, or shall we start?
Yeah, Ignacio.
Yeah.
Basically, I like everything you've said, and I think maybe that you're sort of touching slightly on a subject that I agree with. In other words, that is, people mustn't fall in love with the property so much that they can't actually listen to their own lawyer who's telling them not to purchase. Over the last 30 years, at least on 4 or 5 occasions, I've been in a situation where I've felt literally that I'm battling against my own client and the estate agent, because literally the client, and these are not good types of clients. Most clients would not be like this way, but we have been in this situation where literally we're the bad ones telling our client not to purchase. And yet, they got the estate agent telling them that this lawyer's very difficult. He's very, he is difficult. He's trying to prove that he knows so much, and this, that, and the other. And they've fallen so madly in love with the property that it's difficult to convince them of the contrary. In fact, we've got loads of reviews on our, I'm not sure if it was on Facebook or Google, this one. And basically they're all perfect, 5 stars, 4 stars, and the odd mistake of someone that's gone, but excellent lawyer, and then put 3 stars. What's going on? But anyway, everything is good. But there's one review that over the years annoyed me a lot. And that was a lady who was actually buying, because back in 10 years ago, we did handle also purchases up in your area, my region, but we stopped because there's so much where we can't be everywhere. And this lady, we told her not to purchase a property. So she didn't purchase. And in the end, but I always got the feeling that in the back of her head, she sort of thought that we went overboard. And then she ended up buying another property, and she was looking at something else. We did all the searches, and we said we were a bit reticent about it, but we didn't say no to it, just that we're a bit, that we didn't think. And she ended up buying with another lawyer. The first property that she was buying was literally just a disaster. I won't bother you with all the details. It was literally, it would have been an absolute disaster. So basically, I probably saved her 300,000 or 400,000 euro. It was a 700,000 euro property, but that property would not have been worth more than that. And even though we gave a budget in which was for 1%, so that would have been 7,000, and we took a retainer of 2,000 euro, which we expressly say on our budget is non-refundable. And even though I'd said quite at the beginning of the process that she shouldn't didn't buy that property, she kept insisting, but look into this, see if you can sort that out, this problem and that problem. And I always said, I think we're wasting money, because I think almost for certain in the end it's not going to happen. Let the agent, there was 2 agents involved, and a house, a company that was dedicated to flipping houses up there. So there's 3 companies telling her everything's great. I'm telling her that everything's wrong, and so in the end she didn't buy. And she wrote a nasty review on Facebook saying that she thought that we were not worth the money, and it really, really bugged me, because in her case is when it's in cases like that where we really provide the maximum value for money. I fell out completely with the 2 estate agents involved that will always try to never deal with me again. With the company that flips these houses, that's not so important for me because they don't do that many. But the 2 agents are no agents. They were both pushing for this deal. They'll never deal with me again, or try to never keep clients away from me. And yet I offered the maximum value for money, and I got a nasty review. And what I'm saying about this is if people choose a lawyer, be careful when you choose one. Choose someone that's independent. Lawyers can't live on handling conveyances at €1,500 because if they're charging that sort of amounts, they've not got the sufficient oomph to say no to a deal because they just haven't got the money to send their kids to the right schools or anything like that. So they're on the edge all the time. Use someone that's got certain substance. A normal lawyer will charge you a normal rate. There's no great deals. Don't use someone that's exclusively been sent to you by the agent. And if you have the combination of somebody that's been funneled to you by the agent and he's cheaper than the other 3 budgets that you've got, don't use him. Doesn't mean that he's going to be bad, but he's probably just not got the sufficient oomph to say no in a difficult situation with that agent who probably sends him loads of work. Like you, we've got lots of agents that send us work. We don't pay commission to anyone. They send us the work, but there's no agent is sufficiently important to me, like to you, to ever basically not say no to them if something went dodgy. Because there's lots of agents around. We've got lots of clients that don't come through the agents, so we can live without them. And over the years, we end up having fallouts with them. I think I said to Ignacio one day, I said that at the end, if you work for 20 years, in the end, you'll never be able to spend more than 20 years with an agent sending you clients that you don't end up falling out massively with them at some point during that process. And it's just life. Over the years, you work with an agent until you fall out with him, and there are others, and then he ends up 5 years later sending you another client again, and you just keep resume and you keep going. So find an independent lawyer, go to the British Consular website, ask around, go online, go and meet the lawyers in their office or over Zoom or something. There is no excuse to not find an independent and lawyer. And as far as builders and them being big, etc., yes, that builder is very large, but I'd still recommend using a lawyer. We've seen very, very large builders in the past that nobody would have dreamt it and have gone bust. For example, and I'm not saying it's the case here, but Polaris World was one of the biggest companies in Spain, and they went bust while they were building like 5,000 properties, 5 golf courses on the go, thousands and thousands. Ignacio and me both had purchases of Polaris World, and in both cases, all our clients had bank guarantees. So we cashed them in on the stage payments, and that was the end of it. But there were hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people that lost their stage payments, didn't have bank guarantees. And what's the problem there? Very simple. The builders have to pay for the bank guarantees because they're insurance policies. And of course, if they can get away with not paying them, they prefer to do that. Nowadays, it's more difficult because there's inspections and things. And we've seen other big building companies. What was that company, Ignacio or Pedro? Martinsa.
That went into bankruptcy, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Martinsa went bust. And in my case, I had 5 purchases on a house they were building down in Cardiff. And I remember that it was really weird because they were being bought out by another company. They were going bust. Everything was happening. And literally, a lawyer called us from the building company. And basically, they were calling around all the lawyers, everyone that had bank guarantees, because they knew that those were all going to cash in. And we were all offered a €3,000 discount if we all went quickly down to Cardiff and signed our completions. So some things were not finished on the golf courses, so our clients could all choose between not doing anything, and then we got the mess of pulling in the bank guarantees, or going down and completing. If at that moment in time you haven't got a lawyer that's working for you, you'll never know what's going on.
I fully agree, Michael. I fully agree, and I really think it's quite important for their own peace of mind, And as you were talking, we dealt with cases against Human in Mediterranean, right? So I mean, I don't know, 100 cases probably, and you could see the difference. I know for clients might not appreciate, or they just think, oh, it's expensive or it's not. but they don't appreciate the expertise, and the know-how. And that's quite important. So I'm going to just jump, because we're running out of time, to the questions, Pedro. You
Okay,
were
well, let's
talking
go to the
about
first one.
AIDAS, if you want to go
Yeah, the
on
one you
that,
said
and then we'll run through it.
by Joe. Thank you, Joe. I mean, obviously, Adidas is a very reputable company. We know them pretty well. And obviously, one of the issues I need to check, as been said, being insisted by Michael and Ignacio, about the bank guarantees. Bank guarantees that guarantee the money you have paid in case something happens, whatever it happens. The completion is delayed, there is no construction, there is a bankruptcy, whatever it is. At the end, you have a bank guarantee which guarantees the money you have paid on the stage of until is duly finished. There are many concerns, obviously, in order to check and make a due diligence. Obviously, it's a reputable company, but at the end, the description of the property, whatever is being sold to you, is being written, and the agreement is absolutely, in terms of balance into the rights and obligations you have and the rights and obligations that the seller has. Not just because others, I mean, in any builder. The balance, and in terms of it is not all the rights to the builder, and you just have obligations, which is payments and that. I mean, it's just to get a balance on the contract. Obviously, the builders, they have normally like a standard contract they prepare, but obviously their lawyers and the ones who want to defend your interests are the ones who are obviously insist on this clause and this clause and this clause and this clause and this clause to change, to modify, and interested in a negotiation. Some builders say no, this is the contract and this is what they want to sell. They also want to have the purchaser, the client, and they, in many occasions, they understand about changing this and that. Okay.
So Pedro, going back to Joe's question, probably, even though he's a reputable builder, should I be concerned with any issues that may arise with the purchase that might require a lawyer? Well, again, Joe, our recommendation is to have your own lawyer looking after you. Don't worry if probably it is less work or more work. Probably the lawyer could be more accurate depending on where you are, but I'm sure it's very valuable. A good lawyer will be very valuable to give you advice. Even there's a reputable builder now, it doesn't matter. Tomorrow it could be a credit crunch, and if there is an issue, we have still been dealing nowadays with court cases from 2009. So you could imagine how much time it has taken us. I just made a recent bank transfer of a lot of money to clients who've been dealing and fighting through the courts from the first instance, a high court, and even when banks took it to the high court in Madrid. So I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it is important you being protected. And to the second question, I don't think you should be aware or concerned about the specific municipality, as long as the lawyer provides you with the license, the building license, the habitation license, and communities. Because sometimes you're buying a property. We didn't touch base here, guys, on the bylaws. Sometimes you need to understand what are the bylaws of the community. You end up buying a property, but there is a whole bunch of rules that probably you need to understand, or somebody needs to discuss it in a video conference with you, all the ins and outs, because you're committing yourself into that as well, and how it's going to move on forward. So that's something that I wouldn't be worried, concerned to have somebody looking after you only. I think Michael wanted to say something, yeah?
I'd like to answer the question with the timestamp 1815. I'm going to read it out. There are a large number of properties being advertised that are not mortgageable, usually because the property has not been legalized. If a property has been in situ for, say, 20 years, is it possible to legalize? If so, and if so, what are the costs involved? Does a law of prescription arise? Okay, so let me see if I can answer this question. Properties that are not legal and basically not mortgageable, as they say here, those are untouchable, in my view, for a normal consumer. They shouldn't be touched. You see, it's cheap, etc., but you don't know what's behind it. Okay, so you should never touch one of those properties, even if you're buying it at half price. It doesn't matter. So they're saying here, can it be legalized after 20 years, etc.? Well, we don't know, because the truth of the matter is that if the property could be legalized in a normal manner, the seller can do it, and the seller has a lot more information than you, the buyer, does about the property, because he knows whether he's received communications to have it knocked down. He knows this, he knows that, he knows everything. You, as the buyer, you're going in there blind. You've no idea what you're going to buy. So no lawyer would recommend that a normal consumer buys one of those properties. I definitely wouldn't. If I have a 60-year-old couple coming over to Spain, they're going to retire and say, oh, I've seen this property. I think it could be legalized. We're buying it at half price. I'd always say that we wouldn't touch it for them. We're not going to handle it. Those sort of properties, transactions, they're for speculators, professional investors that know what they're doing and can assume a risk. It may be okay for them, but not for anybody else. So I mean, basically say, can a property be legalized? It depends on loads of things. Is it on rustic land? Is it on urban land? Is it in a waterway? Is it in a natural park? Is it that there are so many questions and different things? Have you received any communication from the town hall the last X amount of years? Lots of things that you won't have the information for. So basically, unfortunately, and I know sometimes you fall in love. Well, so it's the house that I can afford. You can't touch it. Leave that to the speculators and the investors. And if the seller really thinks that they can legalize this, as the estate agent was, so easy, you're going to legalize it, there's no problems, etc., then really they should do it. They should do it and then sell it at proper market price.
Okay, Michael, just a few questions here. Probably didn't touch base on having an independent surveyor. That's pretty good as well, especially on the cases that you're talking, because the bank valuer is going to value the land and probably just make a valuation protecting the bank and obviously their equity. But sometimes, even when you get a valuer, you don't really get a full independent surveyor report. And especially inland, Michael, is a good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because inland is key to have an independent surveyor. Yeah. And even measuring the square meters of land of the plot. Because it doesn't.
We find it really useful, Ignacio, especially with single houses on their own. Sometimes the title deed will say constructed meters in total 160 square meters. There's nothing wrong with that, but with that I can't tell, and the client can't tell really if there is 160 meters there or if they've built extra meters. If it does, a lot of title deeds don't distinguish by bedrooms, etc. So what if they've built an enormous extension which is completely illegal? Still within statute limitations, it can still be knocked down, and unless a surveyor goes and measures the house, then for us as solicitors, it's very difficult to know. So basically, I think, Ignacio, I know you do the same thing, that you send the search certificate to the surveyor, so when he goes round there, he can compare what's on the title deed to what is seen there in reality. That can be very helpful.
There's a problem, Michael, we're facing here. Okay, you're going to buy 10,000 square meters of land with a property that was built many years ago with the laws of the old days, and probably you didn't update the pool, you didn't update the porch, you didn't, but probably the square meters of the land doesn't even click because Cadastro, which is a tax office map for you guys to know, it has one measurement. Now the land registry is not coordinated with the reference at the moment where the property is. So you can have a mixture of things. I'm not saying something wrong is gonna go, but you're getting a price for a property which is having potential issues, and you don't want that. You probably want the vendor to legalize that before you even buy. So that's the lawyer, the one to identify that is the issue. The lawyer wouldn't be able to do it without an independent surveyor because the lawyer doesn't know about could interpret what the surveyor says, what the law says, etc. So we could send you surveyors if he's in our area. I'm sure Michael in his area has reputable surveyors, and we're running out of time, so we're going to jump into more questions.
This Pedro, is just what you're saying. One of the things that I normally say, there are cases about something is not correct, wrong, updated. I always say that the reality on the property and the land physically must be updated to the reality in Cadastro, tax office, as Ignacio said, and the reality in the property registry. So the description of the property registry needs to be as equally on Cadastro and equally on real, on if you measure. Obviously, there are many situations that this is not like that. But obviously, is the work on the lawyer or sometimes also the agent in terms of, okay, well, let's include some clause in terms of the vendor must update this before completion. And if it's not done, then we'll be retain some money for the buyer in order to do it and pay a cost. So at the end, if someone is buying 300,000 euros property, let's say an example, it will cost 300,000 euros and will not cost once it's bought, once you get the keys, and then you need to update that. And then it will cost you another 5,000-10,000 euros more, or whatever it is. Important. This is why it's important to you at the end to strike an independent lawyer in terms of, okay, this is not correctly done, this is not correctly done, let's retain some money from the vendor, and let's include this clause, kind of clause in terms of, I want the property updated free of charges, absolutely updated on the legalities and planning law. And this is important. This is, I understand it extremely important, because at the end, when clients buy a property and then see that there's an extra cost, and then there's some charges on electricity or water or this or that, and the end, even though it was planned to buy a property of, let's say, 300,000 euros, then they have to pay more. Is something that is not correct, something on the file.
Pedro, let me just add one more thing.
Yeah.
Pedro, let me add one more thing. Sometimes, I mean, I think the negative side, you could think about, okay, I'm throwing money in a surveyor, I'm throwing money into a lawyer, but the good part of it, and we could tell you because we've been dealing a lot of cases, so I'm trying to encourage people to think that this is good, because avoiding you falling into a trap is always cheap. I know you could say, okay, I'm spending, as Michael was saying, they were trying to buy a 700,000 euros property, but you pick that up. So basically, you really save, because I could tell you, and obviously we don't have the time today to talk about court cases and how does it take, how long it takes. So you spend that money, how I'm going to get my money back? Well, here is the lesson. You need to spend this money. You need to take this time. You need to take to court. And even if you get a sentence, if they are bankrupt, you cannot get the money. So the lawyers save you having that problem. So I really think it's important protection of clients. And I want to make it clear, Pedro, because sometimes we fall in love with properties and we just, it's like driving with no license. We just drive and we just jump all the red lights. Pedro, more questions.
Okay, let's go rapid right now. We have like 5 minutes. I'm going to be rapid with some questions that I'm reading right now. I mean, someone which is writing from Belgium, 68 years old. They will be moving in 2026 to Spain, become resident and sell our house in Belgium. Do we have to wait until the second half of 2026 to become tax residents? Okay, if you are over 65 and you sell your main home, that's in Spain is tax-free, is exempt. But, and having said that, if you move to Spain, it doesn't matter in the first half or second half that you said. If you move to Spain and you have not sold the property in Belgium, and from the day that you start being resident, you do not sell that property in the following 2 years, that property lose the benefit of the concept of habitual residence. That property, even though you sell it after 2 years, will not have that benefit. So it is important that obviously you sell it before 2 years you move, and obviously as you are over 65 and it's your main home, whenever you sell it before these 2 years, it will be exempt. Okay, another question is, someone buys property that is in the construction phase, if the construction company is late with construction completion, legal options, or can the buyer, obviously, if a completion date is late and you incur and prove costs, damages because of that late, because you wanted to move that time, because you have suffered and because you have to rent another property. Normally in that kind of contracts, the developers, they are very tricky on this and they extend that contract another 6 months normally. Check your contract, and that will probably happen sometimes more. I do not see it correctly to do it more than 6 months extension, except if it's a force majeure, in case something really happens that no one could stop that. And looking for properties in Costa Blanca, Costa del Sol, where to start? Michael, where to start in Costa del Sol?
Well, the Costa del Sol is, or Andalusia, if you like, to be more. There is just there is a bit of everything, you know. It's like there's just so much. What to buy in Andalusia? I mean, we have you know, still small villages like Majaca or Manilva or it depends on a lot of things. It depends on city life, beach, budget, very important, obviously. In Andalusia, basically has everything. We've got from ski
It's quite big,
resorts
yeah.
to beach resorts to city resorts to we've got everything. So we need to learn a lot more. Is it a young couple? Is it a single person? Is he retired? Of course, I've had 30 years of experience buying properties and seeing who's happy and who's not. Of all our clients, I've got a good idea of what everyone likes, but I need to know what their situation is to narrow it down a little bit. I mean, if you're into golf, Costa del Sol is great. If you're into, it depends on what you're into. We'd have to know more about them.
And Pedro, David was mentioning, I think Michael, on the press, and I won't take you for too long here, but adverts about probably being more expensive if you're a non-European country citizen member. Is it a chance? David is saying here because they got rid of the golden visa. Non-Europeans always pay a bit more. He's asking if we think it will be more expensive to buy property. But before you even go, Michael, I think it is all about we don't know. It's like inheritance tax here. Today we know what it is. We don't know tomorrow.
Yeah, that's it. That's correct. Yeah.
Over to you, Michael. What do you think about?
Yeah, well, I just think receiving lots of calls since Pedro Sanchez, he announced he was going to create 100% tax on non-residents on non-residents of the EU buying in Spain. And just for those that are still doubting it, it is 100% tax. It's not 100% increase on the transfer tax. It's 100% tax because lots of people keep emailing us. I don't know why they keep thinking that it's 100% increase. It's not. It's 100% tax. So I don't know if it's going to end up happening or not. I don't think it will. I think it's all smoke. I don't think it's happened, but I don't want to be responsible if it does happen and then but I just don't think it's going to happen. So where are we with that? Well, our president says he's going to do it, and now he's actually presented the proposal of law to Parliament. So technically, it's happening, but I just really don't think it's going to actually happen. So what are we recommending to our clients that are saying, well, we really want to buy property in Spain? Well, we're saying we don't think it's going to happen, but if you want to buy anyway, buy now. Don't wait. What's the point of waiting? If you sign the title deed now, it's out of the way. You're the owner of a property in Spain, and there's no more, and there's no risk after that of being caught out with this 100%.
Pedro, what else?
What we are telling
Michael.
So Ignacio is just in case when they sign the deposit contract, we're always now putting in a little clause stating that if between the deposit contract and the completion of the notary, this 100% 100% tax materializes, that the buyer can pull out receiving their deposit back, not double the deposit, just deposit back. We're doing that to avoid the market coming to a standstill. And most lawyers, I think we've got a WhatsApp group down here in Andalusia. Lots of lawyers are on it. And we sent out a WhatsApp even with the proposed clause. And we're basically all implementing it. And I'm handling the seller. And the buyer says, I want that clause in. We don't even argue it. And we expect vice versa to happen as well. Because otherwise, I say, nobody reckons. I don't think it's going to happen. But just in case, of course, we need to put that sort of clause into the contracts.
Pedro, are you missing anyone? I know Eugeni's asking a good question.
Yeah, let me answer that because it's important what you said. We in our due diligence, we normally, unless it's a place that we exactly know, we normally apply for two planning reports. One of them is just to know exactly where the property is and what planning law is affected to that specific property and that specific area. So if it happens something about is a flooding zone because it's been estimated that area is a flooding issue, a flood zone, or any other issues that may arise, it's obviously is planned into the plan of the municipality. And whenever we apply for the report, it will appear that information in order to be given to the client. And we, in every single case of a conveyance that we represent clients, is like that. And also we apply for another report, which means that information from the municipality to tell us if there is a file opened by the municipality against that property because maybe has not complied the planning rules in that specific municipality, or something has been done wrong on that property because the license or whatever issue about planning. So it is important what is saying by Eugene. Thank you, Eugene. Okay.
Okay, Pedro. Is anything else that we're covering? Just the very last minute of glory here. I'm going to just share with you guys the emails from the panelists, and just in case you want to interact with us, I will mention that if you have specific questions, it's always worth it to organize video conference. Michael does it through his program, and we do it as well. Spain is a beautiful country. It's safe buying a property in Spain, but don't miss out. Due diligence with the right people, and try to protect yourself. Okay, that's key. Shopping around is always a good option, renting versus buying, and then you just choose the right one. Even buying and selling from an investor point of view. But again, just watch out. Don't fall in love with the property just at first sight, as the advert says. And happy to discuss anything further with you over the next week. We have time, all of us. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you. Nice to see you all. Bye.
Thank you.
One friend, over to you. He's going to take you for 1 minute on a nice video. Thank you. See you next time.
Buying a property in Spain. There are many reasons to purchase a property in Spain. The climate, the food, the culture, or simply to enjoy life. If you already see yourself buying the house of your dreams in the Mediterranean, it is important to be cautious and follow a series of steps. First, prepare a budget and take into account all the possible expenses. Remember to add transfer tax or VAT to the sale price, as well as legal fees, notary fees, and land registry fees. And even if it was love at first sight, do not rush or sign anything. The most important thing, especially if you're not yet a Spanish resident, is to hire an independent lawyer, a specialist who speaks your language and solely defends your interests. Together, you can review the characteristics of the house, should it have pending charges, negotiate a mortgage with the banks, and you will always be up to date throughout the whole process. But most importantly, fall in love with your property and do things by the book. Your new life starts there. Pellicer and Heredia, international lawyers.